This episode of Escape to the Quarter Bin is sponsored by Infinite Realities Comics and Games, located in the heart of downtown Tucker, Georgia, with over 2,700 square feet of new comics, back issues, paperbacks and hardcovers, gaming, action figures, and of course, the quarter bins. You can even call ahead for curbside service. That's Infinite Realities, comics, games, and more. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Escape to the Quarter Bin. I'm your host, Adrian Johnson, and thank you once again for checking out this episode and for checking out the channel. As always, please like, share, and subscribe if you love what you're seeing here. And also, I got a Patreon, and for just $1 a month, you can donate and keep this thing going. But anyway, let's roll right into it. All right, first up, we have Superman Unchained #1 by Jim Lee, inked by Scott Williams, and written by Scott Snyder. And I believe this came out in, looks like August, was cover dated August of 2013. And I remember being kind of excited for this book. You know, his stuff, you know, it really, his latter day work, you know, is still absolutely, you know, very, very functional. You know, just in terms of like, man, he can give you these, you know, great page layouts, you know, and do everything that, you know, he's been known to do as far as like his artwork and whatnot. And I just feel like, you know, with every project, you know, he seems like he has something to prove, you know what I'm saying? Or just seeing if he could do it. And one of the things here that I remember about this issue, and I was fortunate to find, you know, a copy that had this in here, was it goes into this this huge spread that's actually a poster, if you believe it or not. And this is just attached in here. All right. So it folds out into this huge poster, you know, and this would ostensibly be a 4-page spread, you know, and then it continues on this next page here. Look at this. This is pretty cool. Wow. So that's what I mean. Like Lee, he has lost none of his punch to excite and impress, you know, when it comes to, you know, him just really taking over a book in his latter day work, and just, man, the stuff is great. I mean, it's cool. I can't knock it, you know. But I will say, you know, as you go through the issue here, you know, it's noticeable in terms of, you know, the inking work of Williams. And I had read in an issue, I think, of Draw Magazine a few years ago, that Lee was primarily inking Lee's work now with mostly a brush, a sable hair brush, you know. And whereas before, if you recall Lee's earlier work, you know, when he was doing stuff obviously like Wildcats and, you know, definitely his X-Men work, you know, where he was obviously to become best known for, you know, a lot of that stuff, if not most of that stuff, was exclusively done with mostly a crow quill pen nib, I should say. So the quality of the ink line that Williams is able to get here is really sharp, you know, considering that he's probably using mostly a brush, you know, for this. And, you know, some of the things here, you know, far be it for me to say that, you know, Lee's work isn't as tight as it once was. And in terms of tight, I mean, just in terms of the way that the figures are constructed and everything. I mean, he's still giving you that solid superheroic anatomy and everything, but it just almost feels like, I don't know. I don't know, you know, reading through it, it's just wasn't quite grabbing me, you know. And I think I got the second issue of this a while ago. I remember getting this when it first came out, and I wasn't struck by the story too much. You know, I didn't think the story was too hot. You know, I was definitely coming on just to see like what, you know, Lee was doing. You know what I mean? And yeah, and it was like, it was okay. It was okay. Right. And so next up, we have from, I believe it's 1994, Ultraforce, #1, by Gerard Jones, George Perez, and inked by Al Vey. Now, Ultraforce, and I think the Ultraverse, by extension, you know, as overall, you know, it kind of gets a bad rap, you know. I think a lot of people think of, you know, the Ultraverse, you know, as being, you know, kind of just one of those things that popped up, you know, in the wake of Image Comics, which, truth be told, yeah, I wouldn't disapprove of saying that, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, a couple of their books, like, you know, I was actually a fan, I still am a fan of Prime, you know, also written by Gerard Jones, but with artwork by the late, great Norm Brayfogle, rest in peace. So there was Prime, and then I never checked out Ultraforce, never checked it out. There was a small ash can, actually, that came in an issue of Wizard magazine back in the day. It was Ultraforce #0, and it led right into this issue. And I think it came in issue, I think maybe issue 35 or 36 or somewhere in there. You know, small little ash can, you know. And it led right into this issue, like I said. And, you know, the thing about Perez is just, he's awesome. George Perez, you cannot argue that he has just been mad consistent all throughout his career, you know, and that's definitely evident here. Like his figures, the detail that he puts into this stuff, you know, it's just great. It's just great. He's like one of the all-time greats. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he just retired from drawing regular books recently, like within the last year or two, you know. So he'll definitely be missed, you know, because he was still a force to be reckoned with, even to this day. And I remember, you know, seeing him come on to, you know, the Ultraverse, you know, Ultraforce. That was quite a coup, you know, because I remember at the time he was just coming off of doing some stuff for, I think it was Epic Comics. They had a kind of a mature readers line, and they were doing something called Sax and Violence, and it was spelled. I'm going to put a picture of the comic up here so you can see how it was spelled, but obviously it was to say sex and violence, you know, basically, you know. So that was kind of his way of getting, you know, grim and gritty, you know, which was the trend at the time. But yeah, you know, coming off of that, and he was, I think, still doing some stuff, you know, here and there for, you know, the big two, particularly for DC, if I'm not mistaken. And so Malibu Comics was able to get him onto the Ultraforce books, and yeah, I mean, this stuff is still, oh man, I mean, you can't beat it. He gives you your money's worth. I mean, look at these panel layouts, you know. There are very few people that would, you know, really be able to give you these type of panel layouts, and with all these figures, action, everything, you know, all on one page. You know, so I think he really strives to give you, you know, his money's worth on that, you know. And looking at the lettering, I should have noted, this looks exactly like John Workman. John Workman might have lettered this. Let me go back up to the front here, because it looks exactly like his stuff. The telltale about John Workman is this stuff right here, this type of lettering, and you can see the strokes that he's making on his lettering too. I bet you this is John Workman. Let's see. Ah, sure enough, there it is, John Workman. Yeah, man, I know my lettering. All right. Yeah, like these layouts are just, oh man. Here we go. This is usually the telltale sign. Back in like the mid-90s, you know, the early to mid-90s, when you saw a flap like this or something like that, it wouldn't always look exactly like this, but that was usually a telltale sign that there was a tip in, you know, as far as like some type of card or insert somewhere in here, you know, probably on the next couple of pages. Oh man, yeah, Perez is really giving it to you. Yeah, I mean, look at this. This is standard, like all this rubble and stuff. This is standard Perez. This is standard Perez work, man. You know what I'm saying? There's a such thing to me as like Perez rubble. You know, just like the same way you would say there's a such thing as, you know, John Byrne machinery or Frank Miller water towers. You know, there are certain conventions, you know, that these artists, you know, back then, you know, really put into their work, like seemingly consistently, you know, all the time. Okay, here we go. Here we go. So what is this? Ah, okay. So it looks like the insert here is actually an Ultraverse card from the card set. I bet you this is about 100 cards. They usually were. Let's see. Okay, so about 90 cards. Yeah, usually the card sets around this time, for whatever reason, they always round it out at like an even 100 cards. You know, if you take a look at the episode of Blurted Out elsewhere on this channel, where, you know, I mentioned about, you know, the Jim Lee card set, I think that went to 99 or 100. In fact, I believe it went to 100 cards, and that's in addition to like the hologram cards. But for whatever reason, like with a lot of these comic card sets back then, you know, 100 cards was like the magic number, you know. And it looks like this one here is a painting of Prime done by Dave Dorman. That's cool. Okay. All right. It looks like that's the end of the issue right there. And this is a standard thing with Perez as well, you know, to do like this tier of panels, like showing, you know, close-ups of each of the characters on the team, you know. And that's the other thing with Perez as well, is that he really, for whatever reason, he just really specializes with a plum in doing team books. You know, he just loves it, seemingly. Next, we have from Continuity Comics, it's Megalith, number 16. And this is from the Death Watch 2000 crossover. Now, I know, I know for some of you guys, for many collectors out there in the know, you know, Continuity Comics is almost known for just being, their comics were, well, they are garish, you know, extremely garish, you know, just in terms of just the type of coloring and the artwork itself that was in your face and everything. You know, they definitely were trying to be a competitor with Image Comics, you know, as so many other companies were at the time. You know, because Image Comics around this time, like let's say 92, 93, you know, they had caused such a seismic effect in the industry that it seemed like everybody else was playing catch up. And especially when you have someone like a legend in the industry, like a Neil Adams, you know, with his Continuity Comics, having to do this, having to catch up with, you know, Image, you know, on the art tip, you know, that's really saying something. But what's unique about this particular book here, from the outset, check this out. I believe this cover is done by, usually says on the first, I think this is Rudy Nebres, obviously inked by Kevin Nolan. Let me see. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's actually Ernesto Infante. I'm sorry if I got that wrong. Infante. And inked by Kevin Nolan. And you can tell it's Nolan because of these areas of spotted blacks. And you can actually look and see the feathering that he would do, you know, out of those black areas, you know. And the other telltale with Nolan, the faces. Like, take a look at that. That is all Nolan right there. That is a typical Kevin Nolan face, you know, in addition to, you know, spotting the blacks and everything. You know, look along the definition of that thigh and all of that. Yeah, that's totally Kevin Nolan. But speaking of Infante, Ernesto Infante. He's someone that I've followed for a while, trying to get some more of his work. I had actually mentioned him in one of the episodes that I had done on, my three favorite Filipino artists. Well, I don't think I mentioned him, but I mentioned the magazine of comic book artists that I referred to for a number of those Filipino artists, and he was one of those in there. In fact, they referred to him in there as kind of the as the lost Filipino, so to speak, or the unknown Filipino artist, because his stuff was obviously so dynamic, so incredible. Who was inking him here? Okay, looks like inks by someone named Alberto Saichan. And then obviously plot by Neil Adams, story by Peter Stone, as all continuity comics are. But, with Infante, his stuff here is very, very good, Like, you can tell from the outset. Oh, far be it for me to also mention here, you got a piece of a Michael Golden, puzzle, if you will. If you got all these issues in the Death Watch 2000 crossover, you go to the inside front cover, and I believe the back cover too, inside back cover. If you remove the staples and put them all together, it would form a huge Michael Golden, black and white image. And I have a couple of these, so I'm still on the hunt trying to get the rest of them, because I want to see what it looks like, you know what I'm saying? But, all right, I'm getting back off track here. But speaking of Ernesto Infante, his stuff was very dynamic. And they mentioned in that issue of Comic Book Artist, it's a mystery as to why he never garnered mainstream work, Like, you could easily see him on, any of those popular books at the time, a Batman or a Superman or, any of those popular superhero books. But for some reason, the big two never came around to, really, checking him out. But yeah, look at this stuff. Stuff is great. Now, here's the thing about continuity that, that's obvious. You look at the faces of the characters that are drawn, I had heard it rumored, and it's probably truth. It's not even a rumor, that the pages would be drawn, of course, and when you have a legend like Neil Adams looking over your shoulder or looking over the pages, obviously it's his company, so he's going to go in and do probably some corrections over it, to make it look, more in line and in accordance with his personal vision. And the thing that he would do that I had heard rumored, and again, it's probably true, is that he would go in and redraw the faces to look like the faces that he is known for, in his comics, I guess perhaps to keep that continuity, if you will. But, but yeah, I mean, it's, like I said, these continuity comics are very, very, very garish, and part of me, see, that's the thing, part of me likes that. Part of me likes how garish these are, you're not going to find comics that look like these, in these days, for better or for worse. But yeah, I mean, this stuff is like, like if you're a kid back then, I was like 13 back in '93, when this stuff was coming out. Yeah, heck yeah, I would have punked down my money and probably bought this, Yeah, you can see definitely here. These are all Neil Adams faces. It's obvious that he went back in and redrew it. You know what I mean? But, Infante's work, though, I mean, it's so dynamic and so powerful and so solid. Yeah, I've been trying to acquire more of his work, too. And another thing that you should check out as well, if I'm not mistaken, he did several issues of another continuity comic called Valeria the She-Bat. And I think Valeria the She-Bat started under continuity, but then when continuity went over to, I think it was Valiant, under their Windjammer imprint or something like that. They started doing some books over there, you know, and that stuff is just very good, very good. And also check out Nighthawk. Also, that's another continuity comics character that I think also moved over to Valiant in their Windjammer imprint, you know, in the late '90s. And if I'm not mistaken, both Nighthawk and Valeria crossed over, you know, in terms of their books, you know. So yeah, so there's that. Oh, Samaree. Man. All right, and so lastly, the last thing I wanted to feature was this. Extreme Hero. Now, obviously, Extreme refers to Rob Liefeld's studio back in the early to, I'd say mid to late 90s, you know, under Image. Hero, the title refers to a magazine called Hero Illustrated, which was very much a competitor to Wizard magazine in the comics news industry. You know, kind of the same thing that Wizard would do, you know, in terms of reporting the news and having interviews, you know, with creators and so forth. And I think they even had a price guide as well, you know, as most of those magazines back then were wont to do. But what's special about this is that I believe this was maybe if I'm not mistaken, it was a tip-in. You know, it was included in an issue of Hero Illustrated. Let's see, it might say here. Let's see. Okay, it doesn't, but that logo is definitely from Hero Illustrated magazine. But, you know, Image would come out with these type of books, these type of single one-shots, you know, constantly in the 90s. Ostensibly because, you know, to get these characters in print in order to qualify for copyrights and trademarks, you know. So under copyright law here in the United States, if you print an issue and you have all these characters featured in there, well, since they're all featured in a publication, they automatically qualify for protection under copyright and trademark, you know, as long as you file this, you know, with the U.S. Trademark Office and under copyright, you know. So it's a quick, easy way to get these characters, you know, into, you know, the libraries of these creators of like Liefeld or whomever, you know, just economically as possible, you know. So it looks like here you have the first one is Cybrid. Story and pencils, obviously by Rob Liefeld, you can tell, and inks by Danny Mickey. And, you know, Danny Mickey, to me, really came, you know, to the fore, you know, during this time, you know, with Extreme inking over, you know, Liefeld, you know. His stuff here just really pops, you know. It makes Liefeld, who you know, I'll say it, he's never been one of my favorite pencilers. I definitely, you know, have grown to appreciate, you know, the energy that Liefeld, you know, brought to, you know, his layouts and, you know, to his figures and everything. But he's just never done it to me, you know. And I think he is best served when either he is inking himself or when he is inked by, you know, Danny Mickey around this time, you know, because his work took a quantum leap. He had gone on sabbatical, if I remember correctly, back in 93 or so, 92, 93, you know, after Image was formed, you know, just to take a break. And when he came back off of that sabbatical, he called it, you know, oh man, his stuff was sharp. And a lot of that was due to Danny Mickey's work. Okay, so it looks like that's the end of that Cybrid story. Yeah, so again, it's just something to get these characters into print so that, look, like 2 pages here, you know, get these characters into print so that you can actually say, hey, you know, these are now copywritten and trademarked, you know, now they're a part of, you know, our character library, you know, here at Extreme or whatnot. Here's some work by Chap Yap. I think that's how you pronounce it, or maybe Chap Yap. But yeah, I recognized that name, you know, when I got into comics, you know, like I said, back when I was like 13 or 14, you know, I was getting a couple of issues of Team Youngblood and so forth, and he was the artist on Team Youngblood, you know, at the time. Let's see, we got something else here called Lancers. Who drew this? Dang. They don't even have a... Well, we can go back to the contents. Lancers was done by Richard Ory and inks by Danny Mickey. Okay. And then Risk. Then Risk, if I'm not mistaken, I think this was drawn by Chuck Jones. Now, this is interesting here. I'm glad I came across this. Chuck Jones is, if I'm not mistaken, he's one of the very few black artists that I had seen, you know, over at Extreme, you know, when I was a kid. You know, I was curious, well, what is he going to do? Like, does he have a book coming out or what's going on? And he was supposed to draw, there was a comic that Liefeld was developing with and for the rapper Eazy-E, Eric Wright of NWA fame, you know, the late Eric Wright, and he wanted Chuck Jones to draw it, you know, and I believe it was supposed to be called The Hood. And you can look up the character designs online for The Hood, and the character names are like, when you have a character named Compton, that's all you need to know. I was like, oh, come on, guys, come on. Stop kidding, stop it. Anyway, to round out the rest of this issue, you have another group called Metaforce, drawn by Jeff Matsuda. And a lot of these guys, you know, while I'm thinking about it, you know, you start to see their names in credits for a lot of animation, you know, over the years, you know, since this, you know, a lot of animated projects, you know, whether it be Ben 10, a couple of the Batman cartoons like the Batman or Beware the Batman, stuff like that, you know. So these guys are out here. Dan Fraga. Okay, I think this stuff is like Black Flag. Okay, and then here's Black and White by Art T. Bear. Okay, Bloodstrike. Field of Blood. I remember that was the that was the catchphrase for that first issue. You know, rub the blood or feel the blood. And then Supreme, obviously a Superman, you know, knockoff. Prophet. So yeah, they're just putting these characters in here, you know, just to show that, hey, these are all copywritten, all trademarked, you know. And then Troll. And then let me close out by saying I never understood why Liefeld put this Logan or Wolverine hairdo on quite a few of his characters. You know, like, I never understood that, and it confused me when I first got into comics and I was picking up some Image comics, and I would see all these characters that looked like Wolverine. There's a short Wolverine that was Troll. There are a couple of other characters, one named, I think, Cougar or something like that. You know, they also had the Wolverine hairdo or what have you. I just thought that was kind of weird, you know, and confusing, you know. Thanks so much, guys, for joining me on this episode of Escape to the Quarter Bin. As always, as I said at the top, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube. And hey, I do have a Patreon. Check out my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Inazuma Studios. I appreciate it, and you guys take care. Peace.